Good morning, everyone. It's 10 minutes after 7 on a Friday. That means it's time for the Real Estate Fix. I'm your host, Rich Sherman, on KHTS 98.1 FM, AM 1220, your hometown station. I want to thank you guys for tuning in today. As always, I always appreciate it when you guys tune in. We've got some questions and things we'll answer maybe a little bit later in the show or maybe next week, but because this week is going to be a little bit different. We're going to do a little bit quick market wrap-up for you. I'll let you know what's going on with the real estate market, just kind of briefly. And then we're going to talk today about a specific case. And I'm going to tell you guys a story today. The rest of the show is going to be all about the story of one family called the Howards. And I want you guys to hear their story because it's important, because they need help. And I'm going to ask you guys to help them out. And you guys are in a position to help them out. So we're going to try to kind of manufacture a Christmas miracle for this family today and over the next couple of days. I'm going to ask your help for that. But I also want you to hear this story because this is a family that's struggling. They're in trouble. They need our help. They just do. And you'll hear the whole story. And the important thing to remember here, aside from the fact that they need our help, is that the Howards are just like you and me and anybody else. We are all of us no more than one tragedy away from a total disaster. And in their particular case, and we'll go through their story when they come in, but in their particular case, their particular disaster is made far worse because they're now being attacked, and that is the right word to use, is attacked, by Select Portfolio Servicing, which is a mortgage servicing company. And those of you out there who have Select Portfolios as your servicer just groaned because you know who they are and what they are. They buy bad debt, and they're just not terribly nice people. And well, I should say, they're not a terribly nice company. I'm sure they're nice people who work there, but they're not a very nice company. And we're going to talk about them and what they're doing, what a zombie second is, and how this is just crushing this family that's already, well, they're barely treading water as it is. When you hear their story, you'll understand why. And SLS, or SPS rather, has come along to make it that much worse. So we're going to talk about that today. So a little bit of a serious show today, but in this Christmas season, this time between Thanksgiving and Christmas, every so often you find somebody who needs a little Christmas miracle, and we're in a position to help them manufacture one. We're in the position to make one, and I'm hoping you guys will help us do that because we need your help. They need your help. So it's going to be all about that today. But first, let's talk about the market in general. I can tell you the interest rate has come down a little bit. It's fifth straight week in a row the interest rate has come down, so that is good news. God willing, the Fed won't raise the interest rate at the next meeting, but we shall see. I'm hopeful. I mean, they're still well above the 2% target that they're looking for. We're about 3.25 as far as the inflation index in this last couple of days. So hopefully that's enough to get the Fed to calm down, because I'm sure if you've been out there a bit, you can see gas prices are down. Not as much in California as they are in other places, but they're still down, which is good. And you can buy eggs now for a reasonable price, and even the price of bacon has come down a little bit. So I think we're in better shape now than we were a couple of months ago. Whether that's good enough to get the Fed to take their foot off the accelerator, I don't know. We'll see. They're not really telegraphing much of anything at this point. We're taking a wait and see kind of attitude. So I still think the Fed is going to raise the interest rate again before the end of the year. I very much hope I'm wrong about that, because that is the last thing we need. What we need is to see that interest rate keep coming down. We need to see keep coming down to under 6%, preferably around 5.5%, and then the real estate market will approach some sort of normalcy. But the ice and the freeze in real estate is beginning to break. We're seeing more properties come on the market. Still slow, still not enough, but more than were there last month. We're seeing prices start to cool a little bit. So if you're a seller, you're not in bad shape. They're not coming down that much, but prices are coming down a couple of percentage points as more properties are coming out to the market. So it's starting to get a little bit looser out there if you're a buyer, a little bit harder out there if you're a seller, but not much. And these are all very, very small incremental changes. I think the point to take out of this, the only good news you can find really, and it is very good news, is that the real estate market is beginning to thaw out. That freeze that's kept everything from moving. The low interest rates in the pandemic that are keeping people from selling, the high interest rates now that are keeping people from buying, a lot of that is beginning to cool a little bit. So we're starting to see more properties come to the market, and we're starting to see more interest rate sensitive buyers come back to the market as the interest rate starts to go down. Now, 7.25 is nothing to write home about, but it is a heck of a lot better than 8, which is where we were at 5-6 weeks ago. And 5 weeks, continual easing in the mortgage market as the interest rates come down a bit is a good thing. So we'll go over the numbers specifically for Santa Clarita and San Fernando and all that good stuff next week as to the portions of sales and everything else. But the big number to keep in mind, the two big numbers really to keep in mind are these. 80% of all people in the United States who have a mortgage right now have a mortgage under 5%. Of that 80%, 70% of those have a mortgage under 4%. And that's why they're not selling. And the other big number to keep in mind is we have roughly 40% fewer deals being done in 2023 than in hopefully in 2024, but 40% less than in 2022. Whatever your job is, butcher, baker, candlestick maker, whatever it is, if you had 40% fewer clientele, if you did 40% less business, you're going to have a rough year. And that's what's going on in the real estate business. Everybody in the real estate is hurting. Escrow, title, realtors, certainly, lenders, handymen, construction, everybody who's tied to real estate. And that's an awful lot in the real estate economy in Southern California. Heck, in the nation, it's roughly 16-70% of the GDP. To have that entire industry frozen because the Fed is looking to crush inflation, and as I've said many times, when you hear that the Fed talks about they're going to crush inflation, substitute the word inflation for housing market. Because the Fed's problem is areas like ours in Santa Clarita and the Simi Valley and the north part of the San Fernando Valley. We've seen prices go up over the course of the last 2.5 years, 27-28% on average. It's great if you own a house. It's even better if you own 2 or 3. But you got to know that that is not sustainable. And that's the problem we're going headlong into. And that's what the Fed is seeking to crush. They need to cool prices. Because prices can't go up that much. They just can't. That's too much in a year. 2-3% is healthy. Nice healthy growth rate. But 27% over the course of 2.5 years is just way too much. It's not sustainable. So like I keep saying, if you have a house to sell and don't have one to buy, this is your market. But if you are anybody else doing anything else, it's rough sledding. It just is. Not impossible. You can work things out. We can make it work. So that's kind of the market. So if you have any other questions about the market or anything you want to know about it, any problems you're having or how to get better interest rates, all that kind of stuff, give me a call anytime. I'm at 661-714-1400. That is my personal cell phone number. Please don't call me while I'm on the air. You can send me a text message and I'll call you back, because it's the one time I don't return calls is when I'm on the air, or I also don't return calls when I'm sleeping or in the shower. But other than that, it's the only time I don't return calls. So feel free to call me anytime, and if you want any more specific information, I'm happy to help you out. I can also hook you up with Sam Chong at the Mortgage Hub, a sponsor of the show, one of the best lenders I know, is fantastic. And he can help you out if you need a loan or refinance or kind of know what's going on there. Just give us a call anytime. Again, I'm at 661-714-1400. Now let's move on to kind of what's going to be the meat of the show today, because this is an important story, and this time of year it's particularly poignant because the Howards, they need our help. They're good people, and they should be getting better than what they're getting. That's for darn sure. Both from life, because when you hear their story, nobody should have this much tragedy visited upon them in a life, let alone in their case just in the last few years. And we can help. We've got enough in this community, you've got enough in this area that we can rally around and we can help. And I'm going to ask for your help before we're done. So I'm not going to ask you for money. I'm not going to ask you for time. I'm not going to ask you to build a fence or raise a barn. All I'm going to ask you for is to make a phone call, send an email, and if you can do that, be a huge help to us, and a huge help to the Howards, more importantly. So let's talk about the Howards. In their situation, without getting into their stories, we'll do that when they get in. They have a loan, second loan, is Zombie Second. And those of you who are regular listeners of the show, you know what my feeling is about Zombie Seconds, what Zombie Seconds are, with SPS, Select Portfolio Servicing. Now, just real quickly, what is a Zombie Second? I want to make sure we cover that a little bit. A Zombie Second is a junior lien, typically a second mortgage, sometimes a third. In their case, it's a second, as it is with most people, that has gone unpaid for many years. You don't think it existed because you filed a bankruptcy, you did a loan modification, whatever. They made no attempt to collect in this case, a decade, and so you feel the debt has gone away. You may have even gotten a letter in the mail that said this loan has been charged off, no further payments are necessary. A lot of those letters went out between 2008 and 2015. And the problem is, charged off does not mean what you think it means. It doesn't mean the debt is no longer on your house. It doesn't mean that you don't have to make payments. It just means, even if a bank tells you no payments are necessary, the debt still exists. And that is the problem. It's a problem of verbiage that banks hide behind. Now, in the Howard's case, they took out a loan. The loan went bad, as a lot of them do. They did a loan modification, and they thought the second was part of that loan modification, and the second was wiped out because they never heard from them. Because I don't know, if you owed me $290,000, you can be sure you'd hear from me, and I think everybody out there would agree. But in banking, they don't necessarily do that. And so what happens with a zombie second is you think it's dead, you think it's buried, you think it's gone away for whatever reason. And it comes back to life. It comes back from the grave. That's why we call them zombies. To eat your equity, to eat your brains, eat your equity, and make your life a miserable place and kill you. And that is what a zombie second is. And I stand in opposition to these things because they're dirty. They just are. It's the way mortgages work is so different than any other type of debt. If I loan you money as a personal debt, and depending on the type of how we structure it, I have 7 to 12 years to collect. And if I do not take any collection action within either 7 or 12 years, that debt goes away. Poof, gone. But mortgages don't work that way. Mortgages, the life of the loan, plus I think it's 32 years if memory serves. So there's no really effective way to get it. As long as you own the house, you're going to have to deal with that loan, unless it's been conveyed off of title, and they don't do that. So what happens is, the banks take these loans, they go bad, they're worth no money, and they do what they call charging them off. Now, a charge-off to a bank, not the same to you and me. Now, what a charge-off means is they're telling the IRS, the State Franchise Tax Board, that this debt is uncollectible and of no value. Those are the two terms that create a charge-off. Uncollectible, of no value. And the bank takes a tax break when they write it off. Then what the bank does is they turn around and they sell it in what's called the secondary market, sometimes referred to euphemistically as the garbage mortgage market. And what happens is these companies like SPS and SLS and West Coast Collections and Carrington Mortgage and some of these really unsavory types, who you've heard me guys talk about before, will buy these loans up for pennies on the dollar. They do not pay the face value of the loan. It is an auction process. It usually starts at zero, or very nearly that, and it goes up from there. I'm willing to bet on their loan, which was originally $290,000, the Howard's this is, the bank probably paid about $110,000 for it. The investor, shall we say. And you can't find out how much they paid for it. That is not public information. It's just, I've been doing this a long time, and it's a bit of a guess, and I know the markets pretty well. So they paid a little over $100,000 for it. But now they're trying not just to enforce the $290 that was the face value of the loan. No. They want about $530,000 total out of this loan. Again, a debt that has gone uncollected, that the family had every reason to believe no longer existed, that originally started life over 10 years ago at $290, that now they sell in the secondary market for pennies, that now the company that owns it, SPS, now wants full face value of the loan, all the back interest that's piled up against the loan, all the back late fees, everything else, and that total is well over $500,000. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I don't know too many people who can just get a letter in the mail saying, please kindly write us a check for $520,000 in the next 90 days, or we're going to take your house, and be able to deal with it. And that is in the best of circumstances. I mean, I'm in pretty decent shape. We've got some investments. We've got some savings. Less now because of the year we've had in real estate, but I'm doing okay financially. If I got a letter like that, it would cripple me. It does everyone. And when you hear the Howard story, you're going to hear how much that much worse. And the worst part of this, the absolute worst part of this, is the absolutely awful, inhumane, frankly disgusting way that SPS chooses to conduct themselves in this matter. It's wrong. It's just not the way you should treat fellow humans. Saying it's not personal, which they've told me every time I talk to them, is ridiculous, because taking somebody's house is absolutely personal. Taking away from you your biggest single investment, where you lay your head at night, where you raise your kids, is personal. And to act that it isn't is an excuse. A pretty thin one at that. So I'm not a fan of these zombie seconds to begin with, and I talk about it all the time, how to fix it. And if you're a politician and you're listening to this, there are 3 simple fixes, and the entire zombie second problem goes away. Number 1 is notice. When Bank A buys it from Bank B, they are supposed to send you notice, and the banks don't do it. And the reason for that is notice need not be constructive. What that means is they don't have to prove they sent the notice, so they don't. Now, you as the owner who gets one of these letters, or eventually gets one of these letters, can't prove you never got the former notices because you can't prove a negative. It's a logical fallacy. In other words, you cannot prove you did not get a letter. But they will swear on a stack of Bibles that they sent it. That's the first problem, is notice. The second problem is reporting. When a different bank takes over your loan, the least they can do is report it to the assessor's office. So if you contact the assessor's office, you know who owns your loan. I don't think it's not difficult. You shouldn't be chasing a loan that was originated in 2013 and 2023 trying to figure out who owns it, waiting for them to contact you. You should be able to know yourself, and there is no requirement that these loans be re-registered with the assessor's office when they get bought. The original loan is, which I think started with B of A in this case, the B of A hasn't had this loan in years. It's gone through 2 other people before it got to SPS. They didn't know it was SPS or that it even existed. That's number 2. And number 3 is a little more complicated. The third thing that needs to happen is we need to change the way these loans get bought and sold in the secondary market. At a bare minimum, all it has to happen. Whatever SPS paid for this note, the Howard should have had the opportunity to buy it at the same price. Whatever the discounted price is that SPS bought for this note, that again was $290 when it started, they're trying to enforce by $520 as the total amount owed on it, the Howard should have had an opportunity to buy the note against their house that had become a zombie. If SPS can pay, let's say, $150,000 for it, well, then certainly the Howards could have done that. In another situation, I doubt they would have been able to, but at least they should have had the option, because that would do 2 things. That would tell you how much they're buying the debt for in the secondary market. It would set the price for it. It would make it public, and it would give you the ability as a homeowner to wipe it out before it came to get you. And that's it. It's 3 simple changes. 2 of them are super easy. Change 1 word in the law and it's done. And the other one's a little more complicated, but certainly doable. We have enough money and enough willpower in the state to do it, but we lack the political will because not enough people have stories like the Howards. But we're going to see more and more of them as time goes on. So I tell you what, here's what we're going to do. We're going to go to break, and we come back from break. We're going to hear from the sponsors. When we come back from break, we're going to have the Howards in. I'm going to give you guys a little bit of a primer on SPS and exactly who they are as a company and what they are as a company. And then we're going to talk to the Howards about their story, because I want you guys to hear this story, and I need your help. They need your help, so I want you guys to hear this story. And it's a good story. It's going to make you mad, but around this time of year, we're all able to give a helping hand to our fellow man, and these guys need your help, and I'm sure we can do it for them. So let's go to break. When we come back, we're going to talk to the Howards and talk all about SPS. Hi guys, thank you for listening. If you guys listen to the top of the show, I promised you a story, so let's get into it. You've reached the Real Estate Fix. I'm your host, Rich Sherman, on KHTS 98.1 FM, AM 1220, your hometown station. And we were talking before the break about zombie seconds and about kind of what goes on with banks and SPS and buying in the secondary market. So without repeating that kind of stuff, just know that it's a debt that you thought was dead that comes back to life to screw up your life. That's what it does. That's what a zombie second is. And I'm sitting with Marty Howard. Hello, thank you for coming in. I appreciate it. And we've got, it's not a fun story to be sure, but it's a story I want you guys to hear for a couple of reasons. As I said at the top of the show, we are none of us more than one tragedy away from being in a very similar position. That's for sure. We all like to think if tragedy does visit our families that, you could rally around the community and actually get some help from the people like your bank and things like that. And some do and some don't. I mean, I know in your case the VA has been great. We'll talk about that a little bit. But it is just, in my view, and I think most of you will agree with me about this, I think it is morally and ethically bankrupt to have a bank come after a debt that has been unserviced and nothing is done with it with 10 years. And when you hear this story, you'll see why. In this case, they just should not be doing it. I'm not talking about legally, I'm not talking about their legal rights. I'm saying morally and ethically, what SPS is doing in this case is wrong. It just is. So before we get into the case exactly, let's talk about who SPS is. SPS stands for Select Portfolio Servicing. We call them SPS because it's a mouthful to say Select Portfolio Servicing, and everybody knows about them. They're owned by a company called Credit Suisse. Credit Suisse is a financial services company headquartered in Zurich, Switzerland. They bought SPS in 2005 for $144.4 million, and that was a bargain. SPS itself is headquartered in Salt Lake City, Utah, with offices in Jacksonville and Florida. I've been to both of those towns, and they seem like pretty nice towns, but apparently SPS works in a morality-free zone. We'll talk about that in a minute. According to, in 2009, SPS received $856 million bailout from the TARP funds. In other words, when SPS was in trouble, and when SPS was about to go out of business because SPS was having a problem, we as the taxpayers bailed them out. Remember that as we tell the rest of the story. We as taxpayers gave SPS $856 million. Had we not done that, SPS would not still exist. I would submit that the world would be a better place if SPS didn't still exist, but they do. So you have this massive company that, according to DataWise, their website, they have revenue of $721.8 million per year. So when I said they bought the company for $144.4 million and it was a bargain, that's what I'm talking about. $721.8 million a year in revenue. They have 1,352 employees. They're a company, according to DataScan, Select Portfolio Servicing, is a company that collects defaulted or delinquent mortgages. It has faced several lawsuits for allegedly violating, I don't know how alleged this is, we've seen this in my own office, for allegedly defaulting or on delinquent mortgages. It's faced several lawsuits for allegedly violating federal and state laws and engaging in abusive and deceptive collection practices, such as imposing illegal fees, charging for unnecessary insurance, and misrepresenting loan balances. Some of these lawsuits have been settled without admitting guilt, while others are still pending. There's a website out there I like a lot called the Complaint Board. They're a free website where you go and you register your complaint. They get a hold of the manufacturer, the servicer, and they try to work these things out for you, similar to what we do, but a little bit less. And their analysis was, this is from Complaint Board, our investigation has revealed that the company, this is SPS, the company's complaint resolution process is inadequate and ineffective. As a result, only 15% of 59 recent complaints were resolved. The support team may have poor customer service skills, lack of training, or not be well equipped to handle customer service complaints. They have been charged with violations of the RESPA, the Real Estate Settlement Procedures Act, TILA, the Truth in Lending Act, the Fair Debt Collections Practices Act, and the Homeowner Bill of Rights. So the entire, every law that's written to protect homeowners, SPS has at one time or another been brought into court, and a lot of these cases are still pending, for violating. They've also been fined by federal government agencies before they were bought by Credit Suisse. They are not exactly a reputable company, in my view. And when you go to their website, and I'll ask you to respond to this, because I love corporate websites. I love them, and I will tell you why. I love it when a company who is clearly behaving badly, puts this kind of nonsense on their website to try to put lipstick on their particular pig. So let's see how much you've been dealing with them for years. Let's see how much you feel that their corporate website is correct. At SPS, we work closely with our customers to understand their unique situations and provide the right solutions for their individual circumstances. Does SPS do that for you?
No.
No
That's
help. No help in your case. Okay. I'll go on. We promote a culture of compliance because it's the right thing to do.
Oh wow.
I don't think that's been the case in your case. No, you don't think so? No, me either. Well, let's do one more. At SPS, everything we do is focused on providing exceptional service to our customers. Can't get them on the phone most of the time, but they're providing excellent service. We understand that homeowners need a servicer who understands their needs and provides the right solutions. SPS do that for you?
No.
Yeah. We're going to talk about what SPS did do in a minute. And one last thing, because I think this is hysterical. We believe that our relationship with our customers is defined by two things: our performance in servicing, which is abysmal, and our mortgage and our ability to provide assistance when needed. I think they fail on all counts. So that is who SPS is, and now that you know what zombie mortgages are, zombie seconds are, let's talk a little specifically about your story.
Okay.
I'll kind of get you started, but Marty Howard, our guest in studio today, is married to a lovely guy named Sean. And unfortunately, in 2016, Sean was diagnosed with ALS.
Correct.
And for those of you who have never heard of that before, that's commonly known as Lou Gehrig's disease. You want to talk a little about kind of what his condition, how his condition has kind of progressed, and sort of where he's at now with it?
It started in his left foot. He kind of had drop foot, and we kind of noticed it out on a walk earlier than 2016.
Yeah, 2014, 2012.
Yeah, about 2014. Yeah. And so we, just started going to doctors. We thought maybe, he had a pinched nerve in his back, and
Sure.
that's actually kind of where we started with it. We thought maybe he needed a neck surgery, a back surgery, and actually all the doctors were flabbergasted when it turned into ALS. They just thought that's not the way this is going to go, and then we ended up at Cedars, and he got a diagnosis of
also
ALS.
Don't discount the fact, and it's important you guys know this, he's also a former Marine.
Yes,
and
he is.
You never say former Marine. I know those of you out there Marines are already yelling. I know, once you're a Marine, you're always a Marine. I know, I got the protocol fine. It's just how he's no longer in the service. I'll put it to you that way.
Right.
And most of those guys that I know, most of those men and women I know from Marines, whatever their ailment is, it's never any big deal.
Right.
His foot could have been lopped off, and he's just walking with a limp, and it's no big deal.
Right.
So it's not a surprise that he probably didn't think it was a heck of a lot, and then when it became a lot more, obviously terrifying.
Yes.
But that's why we're here now.
Yes.
And at this point, the disease has progressed, and we've met. The disease has progressed to the point where he can't speak. He can't really do much for himself. He's essentially 100% bedridden at this point.
Yes, he is.
And it's one of those. He also had 2 bouts of COVID, as I remember talking about.
Yes, he was hospitalized both times for that.
I mean, luckily he survived those. So you're dealing with somebody who served this country honorably, which not everyone does. Thank you for your service, Sean, if you're listening. And even if he hadn't, I think we could do better than what SLS is doing here. But especially given that he had, especially given that his background, especially given that he served, we can do better. So remember that as we tell the rest of the story. This is somebody who served this country honorably and is now being, for lack of a better description, screwed over by a company that does business in this country. So SLS benefits from this country and benefits from the work that people like Sean have done so that they can exist to do their jobs, and yet they're taking advantage of them. And again, I want to remind you guys, massive, massive bailout. $856 million SPS got for us, the public, to bail them out so they could exist to do this sort of thing to the Howards. So that's Sean's situation. So Sean, suffering from Lou Gehrig's disease, suffering from ALS, 100% disabled. Now, in 2016, when the story kind of picked up speed, Sean had his own business. He was a contractor with a remodeling and
had a restoration
company. He was doing fairly well.
Yes.
You had your own business as well as a hair salon. You were doing well. You guys are both doing great. I mean, you had the same ups and downs as everybody faces in small business, but you're always able to make your bills and kind of live the American dream, as it were. It's all we're all after. And then it all went south.
Yes, it did.
As these things tend to do in life. So first, Sean is diagnosed with ALS, and that's hard enough to deal with. He can't continue in his business, so his business unfortunately goes under. You're trying to take care of him, and as we'd all hope that anyone would do. I've seen a lot of situations like this where one spouse gets sick and the other one says bye. So you're there and you stuck in, and I want to talk about the family stuff as well, because you guys are doing what a family, in my view, is supposed to do. Not that it's up to me to decide these things, but I hope my family would behave as well under similar circumstances. So it makes it even worse that SPS is taking advantage of you guys the way they are, and that is really the way I view this. They're taking advantage. So anyway, so both of your businesses, because of the ALS, because you needed a full-time caregiver, and that needed to be you, went the way of the dodo. That's just the way things go sometimes. I'm sure the pandemic didn't help either.
No.
As far as kind of hard to run a hair salon in a pandemic.
Yeah, it was.
So, and then let's talk about what happened once the ALS set in. So after 2020, you become Sean's full-time caregiver. Both businesses have gone away, and then you find out that the good people at Blue Cross have decided to drop Sean from their insurance.
Yeah, that was actually prior.
Prior to 2020.
Yeah,
Okay, sorry.
Yes, yeah. It was maybe 2 years after his diagnosis.
Okay, so around, so yeah, it's 2018, 2017, around there.
Yeah.
So Blue Cross, they dropped you, and the reason they gave was because the type of insurance that you guys had, and it had for years, is no longer being offered. And wouldn't you know it, right after Sean gets an ALS diagnosis, which is an extremely expensive disease to treat, they decided that they couldn't insure you anymore because it has nothing to do with that, because that'd be illegal. They can't just drop you because you got sick. But as it happens, the type of insurance that you have is being phased out, and they don't have one to replace it with.
Absolutely. That's exactly what happened.
So, first Sean gets sick, then he gets dropped from his insurance, then he loses his company, then you lose your company, and now you're paying for ALS out of pocket.
Correct.
Which will devastate anybody in a few months or a year. I mean,
Right.
It's thousands and thousands of dollars a month for treatment. Okay, so that's kind of how we get to roughly 2018, 2020. And then, as if that wasn't enough, then I think it was 2018 when you get a letter from the IRS saying on top of everything else, they would like to please audit you now.
Yeah.
Because you're not dealing with enough. Lost 2 businesses, ALS, obviously, the most important thing. You're his full-time caregiver, your insurance company drops you, and then the IRS and the California Franchise Tax Board come knocking, and they say, we would like to audit you now because you're just not quite dealing with enough in your life. Now you should have to deal with an audit. What happened when you got the letter for the audit? How did you guys feel? How'd you react when you first got those letters saying, on top of everything else, you're being audited?
Oh, we were devastated. I mean, just devastated, and just, where did this come from? I don't know how they came about it. It was shocking, and we were just like, what do we do now? I mean, how do we even go about paying the IRS?
You would also think that the IRS and the Franchise Tax Board has better things to do than come after you guys.
Yes.
Are you guys really public enemy number one as far as cheating on your taxes?
No.
I mean,
they were small businesses. I mean, even his restoration company, it wasn't a large business.
Yeah. It was a very small, normal,
Exactly.
suburban American business. That's much like my real estate practice, not all that different. So for those of you keeping score, we now have former Marine struck down with ALS, insurance company drops him, and then the IRS and the Franchise Tax Board decide that he and his family need to be audited. And that doesn't even get us up to speed. We haven't brought an SPS yet. So on the heels of that, you guys then contacted the VA, and I think that was with help of
Julia Brownlee.
Julia Brownlee's office, right?
Yeah, Julia Brownlee's office.
I know they're your rep out in Simi Valley, and she's been great with you guys. We talked about that a lot, and she got you guys hooked up with the VA and got things expedited. So, and again,
Yes.
I want to point this out to you because this is an example of how to do it right. Here we have a politician who said, "You are one of my constituents. I understand your problem. I know how to get this fixed for you." And she dove in there, and her staff dove in there, and now you've got VA covering it. And they cover 100% of ALS, so his medical bills are now covered.
That's correct.
So you guys are getting some relief there,
Yes.
and it's starting. I mean, it still hasn't dealt with the audits and the rest of the stuff, but at least it's starting to stabilize. At least you can pay the first mortgage and keep a roof over your heads
Right.
and put food on the table.
Exactly.
Now, before we go too far down that road, in the middle of all of this, and as you're getting set up with the VA, and as Sean's health is declining, the adult kids move back into the house.
Yes. Yes.
Now, let's talk about that a little bit. So tell me what happened there. So Sean's diagnosed. He's in a position where he really can't care for himself. You're his caregiver primarily, but it's hard to care for another human being by yourself. As they say, it takes a village.
Absolutely. So so the kids moved back in, and they're adult children now, but the strength having like men around the house. I mean, it's a good sized house. You've seen it.
Yeah.
The property is it's less than a half acre, but there's a lot of property there. Like, what do I do if the big stuff happens? There's a water leak, or there's roof leak, all these kind of things. It's just like I'm caring for Sean, and I don't know how to solve all these problems.
So now,
on myself.
So in other words, and this is why I wanted to bring this up, this is the way, like I said earlier, this is the way you would want your family to perform. I hope my family, if I was struck down with ALS or something like that, I like to think my family would do that. I'm sure I can speak for my wife and my daughter. I don't know about the rest of them, but I hope to think they would. So this is what you want. I mean, so they've essentially put their lives on hold.
They
to
absolutely
a degree,
have.
So they can come in and help take care of their dad.
Absolutely.
Sounds like a pretty honorable way to go. So
They're
amazing
kids.
Met them. It's fantastic.
Amazing kids.
And let's also add, you also have an adult daughter who also is autistic.
I do.
As if the load you're carrying isn't quite heavy enough with Sean and all the rest. So the family comes together, and they're helping out with Sean. They're helping out with your daughter. Everybody's doing their part, as you would expect them to do. The IRS is auditing you, but at least VA has stepped up, and so we got things covered. So it's rocky, but it's at least stable. Food is
Right.
on the table, roof is over your head, his needs are being met. You guys had to spend a fortune at decking out the house because there's a chair that goes up and down the stairs. There's all kinds of stuff because he's an adult man who can't do a lot of things for himself. So
Yeah,
if you
can't
guys
do anything.
if you guys have ever been through this sort of thing with family members or ever been to a facility that deals with this, the amount of equipment involved is thousands and thousands of dollars, and you have to modify the house in order to be able to make use of it. You can't even take him up and down the stairs. He certainly can't do it himself.
No.
So there has to be a chair, a rail to go up, a motorized chair to go back and forth. There have to be ramps all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's a lot of work that goes into this. It's not a simple thing. And now it's set up and it's worked out. So now we're at a point where that brings us up to about 2022. So things are rough, but stable. Not easy by any stretch of the imagination,
Right.
but at least stable. And then you get the letter from SPS
Yes.
that says, by the way, that loan you thought no longer existed does, and would you kindly give us a little over $500,000 in the next 90 days, or we're going to take your house.
Correct.
Right? And what was the reaction to that? They're like, yeah, it's a stupid question. I
Yeah.
apologize for asking in that form.
Yeah. No, again, we're just devastated. Like, what do I do? I've got the IRS after me. I've got the, California state tax, after me, and my husband's dying. I didn't know what to do.
And also, let me point out to listeners, SPS knows this. SPS was told this immediately. Obviously, you contacted them. You said, this is what's going on.
Yes.
And what was their reaction when you said, this is what's going on? This is my situation. What do I do? What do they say?
Basically, they just told me what was going to happen. They basically just said, in other words, they didn't care. They didn't care.
Well,
They
most
just-
extortionists don't.
Yeah. They just wanted their money, and they wanted to, set up, like the deal that they sent me. It was just,
Yeah, well, let's get into that.
impossible.
It's SPS. I call SPS extortionists because that's what they are. Give me money or else is extortion. You can dress that up anywhere you want, but at the end of the day, give me money or I'll take your house is extortion. And in this case, it's particularly ridiculous because give me money or I'll take your house and throw a dying man out into the street is extortion. It is. It's aside from being immoral and unethical and wrong and just abysmal behavior, it's extortion. So SPS, and I've talked to them about this, you know that, SPS sent you an option. They said, we have an option for you. Here's how you can stay in your house. And I swear, it's not funny because it's just so tragic, but SPS's option is the following, listeners. SPS said, you guys can stay in your house if, and only if, this is the only option they've given you and the only option they will give you. They've made that very clear. They blame you for this. They said you didn't get involved with SPS soon enough because you're supposed to be clairvoyant and know this was coming. So according to SPS, it's all your fault because that's how most people who victimize other people act. They say it's the victim's fault. It's always the way these banks behave. Otherwise, how could they justify their behavior? It's your fault. So here's what SPS offered. They said, we will generously allow you to stay in the house if as part of a loan modification that we are offering you, you give us, I want to have the number exact here, $62,896 by Christmas.
That is correct.
If you give SPS $62,896 to our offices in Salt Lake City by December 25th, we will graciously decide not to foreclose on your house. You also need to start making payments of $2,263 per month. And that's the deal they generously offered you. And by the way, you will still owe more than the balance on this property when you are done paying for that for 15, 20 years. There is still a massive balloon payment between the deferred amount and the balloon payment of about $300,000. So pay us by Christmas or else is extortion. This could not be more mob-like. This could not be more extortion-like if they asked you to deliver the money in a plain paper bag behind a Wendy's. It is ridiculous. Aside from the fact, I don't know about you, but I don't have $63,000. I doubt you guys do in your current
we do not.
situation. To just have 63 grand, I'm rounding up, $63,000 to pay these people by Christmas, literally by Christmas, or they take your house, is wrong. I don't think anyone listening is going to argue with us about that. That is just wrong. And that is the great deal that they offered you, which is absolutely pathetic. So shortly after you got that, that's when we got the call from you guys, and that's where we got involved. So that's where we're going to start to change things. We're going to start doing that today, but we've already done. So I tell you, I can see by the clock, well, it's time for us to go to another break because otherwise the sponsors of the show get very cranky if we don't run their commercials. And also remember, you guys, when you support one of the sponsors, you support the show and this kind of work, so I appreciate that. Please do. So I tell you what, let's go to break. Let's hear from the sponsors. When we come back, we're going to talk about kind of when we got involved and what we can do and how we're going to fix this, more importantly. So you've heard the story, our little Christmas tragedy here. You guys are going to help us turn this into a Christmas miracle. I know we can do this. So I'm Rich. This is The Fix with Rich on KHTS 98.1 AM 1220, your hometown station. Stay through the break. We'll be right back. Hi guys, it's Rich Sherman. You've reached the Real Estate Fix with Rich on KHTS 98.1 AM 1220, your hometown station. Thank you guys very much for listening. We're in the final leg of the show here, and those of you who have been listening through the show, thank you. We've been talking to Marty Howard. She's our in-studio guest today. We're talking about her story, as her tragic, difficult story. Although you guys you're doing pretty well, all things considered. I don't know that I would be able to hold up as well, so hats off to you.
I don't all the time.
Well, yeah, fair enough.
Most times I don't.
That's fair enough. And just to give you a quick wrap up, Sean, your husband was struck down with ALS. He's a former Marine, and we're dealing with, you guys kind of got it on an even keel as best you can, dealing with this sort of stuff and the various tragedies, both physical and economic, and you're doing okay, and then all of a sudden, you get a letter in the mail from SPS saying, by the way, you have a zombie second, although they don't certainly call that, you have a defaulted second, and you owe us a little over $500,000, and please pay us immediately, otherwise we're going to take your house. And the only offer they gave you was give us roughly $63,000 by Christmas. I am not kidding you guys, the actual date is Christmas, and banks do that because they know it's scummy, but they also know that it makes you react more because nobody wants to deal with this in Christmas, and it's that much more devastating. So they intentionally do these things. That's the first time I've seen it. They intentionally do these things to be like by Christmas or by a birth date or something like that. As a matter of fact, the foreclosure date that they're threatening you with is the day after Sean's birthday in January.
Exactly.
So if you don't give us $63,000 by Christmas, then on January 6th, I think it is,
yes,
we'll be foreclosing on your house, which is the day after Sean's birthday. Now, I don't know if they know that or not, but that's a hell of a coincidence that they're coming after you by Christmas and the day after Sean's birthday. Just seems particularly cruel in a situation that's already pretty cruel. So let's underline that a little bit. Let's talk about my conversation. So we got involved with this a month or so ago, and I went to SPS and I said, surely you guys can't be planning on actually doing this. This is pathetic. What you're doing is wrong. When the public finds out about it, they're going to scream about it. Credit Suisse, who owns you guys, is a publicly traded company. Stock prices get affected by bad news cycles, and you're about to walk headlong into one. Now, I don't much care what your what your stock price is, and I don't care if the company folds up and goes away tomorrow. I think we'd be better off if they did. So I'm not looking to help SPS, but at the end of the day, what SPS is doing is not only bad for themselves, it's also bad for you guys. Now, tell me, I don't excuse the crackhead who knocks over a liquor store to get money for crack. I understand that crime. I don't condone it, but I understand it. But when SPS and companies like this commit what I consider at least a moral crime, which is what this is, and it's not in their own interest to do so, you've got to ask, why the hell are they doing it? Why would SPS do something that is bad for them financially, bad for their investor, and also happens to be devastating for you and your family? Because it's not like you can move out and go rent a house down the street.
No, we cannot.
Hundreds of tens of thousands of dollars have to be spent if you could even get into a rental to set it up for Sean. So this is a lot more than just a house. There's a lot more going. His care is tied to that house.
Absolutely.
And we've seen this with clients before. So I talked to SPS, and SPS. I was calling him SLS here. SPS, and they. I talked to a gal named Lori. And for those of you who are listening, we'll go over this again. Lori is teller number 13176, and I would encourage you guys to talk to her because I'm going to give you her phone number as well. Lori's phone number is 800-268-9706. Say it again, 800-268-9706. Because I'm going to ask you guys to do us a big favor. I'm going to ask you guys to help us kind of create a little Christmas miracle here, because I'm going to ask you guys to contact this company. I'm going to ask you to reach out to them, and I'm going to ask you to tell them that they are bad people. I'm going to ask you to get in there, and I'm going to ask you to get this stuff sorted out, because the more calls they get, the more chances we get to get this sorted out. So when I spoke to Lori, she was very big, she was very full of, this is not personal. And I took great offense to that because that is the most ridiculous thing you can possibly say. Of course it's personal. It's offensive to act as if it is not. It's just wrong. It just is. So them saying it's not personal is not okay. Obviously it's personal to you guys. How could it not be?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
How could it not be? So we got involved and we confirmed that the only offer they're giving them is that ridiculous pay us $63,000 we take your house, which obviously you can't do and no one else, because their plan is to take the house. Let's talk about numbers just a little bit. You owe about $850,000 on your first.
Yes.
House is worth a little bit more, a little bit less than that, right around there. Whatever happens, they're not getting their money. They're not getting the $500,000 they want. It's not going to happen. If they foreclose on the house, they're not getting it because they have to pay off the first. That's subject to the first because they're in second position. That's why they're there first, second, third. They're not getting their money. They're just not. And as a result of that, they should be more willing to deal. They should be more willing. In this case, they should write it off and wish you a good day. That is what they should be doing. That is the moral thing to do. That is the ethical thing to do. And they just can't seem to get that around their heads. So what we do is we shine a light on this. We make it public information. We bring them to heel as a result. And so what I want to ask you guys to do, those of you guys who are listening, and you can call me first if you'd like. I'll be happy to prep you if you need to. I'd like you guys to reach out to their loss mitigation department. I'd like you to reach out to Lori. Tell her 13176 at 1-800-268-9706. I'd like you to take a little bit of time out of this holiday season, just a few minutes of your life, dial 1-800-268-9706 and ask for Lori. She is teller number 13176, and tell her that you've heard this story and you think what they're doing is wrong. You think what they're doing is immoral, unethical, and how dare they take a family's house over Christmas from somebody who is who is an honorably discharged Marine who just happened to have the bad luck of getting ALS and who's currently dying from it. Because I have this idea, maybe you guys would agree with me about this, that taking the home away from a dying man is wrong. This debt set unserviced for over 10 years, surely it could sit for another few. SPS could put this thing on the back burner for the next couple of years, be no worse off. They could take the rest of the write-off if they want, and you guys could go along with your life. And if they would offer you that solution, you would surely take it. But SPS doesn't care about you. They don't care about anybody. They care about their own bottom line and nothing but. And that's wrong. I take great offense to that. I'm sure you do as well because you're trying to take your house. But we're going to fix that because you guys are going to do us a great favor. You're going to call 800-268-9706. You're going to ask for Lori, tell her 13176, and you're going to say, please do not foreclose on the Howard family. Please find a way, find it in your heart, like it's the Grinch who stole Christmas, find it in your heart to let these people stay in their home, which again is set up specifically for his needs, and they cannot replicate someplace else. His home is part of his treatment. It is part of his survival. Not just him, but his family who lives there. You have adult children living there. You have a daughter with ALS, a daughter with special needs who's living there, and you guys are managing all of this, and yet they're hitting you with more, and that's just not right. So, is there anything you want to add? Anything you want? I missed out in the story. You think I got everything?
No, I think you got it all.
You think we covered it all? Okay.
I think you covered it all. Thank you.
We're running out of time. We're going to wrap up the show here momentarily, and I want you guys to just do us this favor. Dial 800-268-9706 and tell Lori, teller number 13176, please do not foreclose on this family. It is wrong. And if you disagree, you can always call me and yell at me about it. I'm at 661-714-1400. My name again is Rich Sherman, and this is the Real Estate Fix with Rich. I am your host, Rich Sherman, at KHTS 98.1 AM 1220, your hometown station. But give me a call, give them a call. Let's see if we can't get this fixed. We can help these people. We can create this Christmas miracle.